Hi, thanks for joining me this morning. My guest has not been able to join me today, and so the topic was about past lives, and I was really looking forward to visiting with her. So hopefully she'll be able to be on the podcast at a later date. And so, anyway, but because the subject was past lives, and because in the interview or my conversation with her it will mainly be about her work, then I thought, since she's not here, I would take this time to share my story about past lives and how um, I, I don't know quite where to start, except that I did not believe in past lives at all when I started my work. And just a minute, my phone rang. I'm going to go get it, see if it's her. So sorry about that. It was not in our little neck of the woods here out in rural, um, kind of the middle of nowhere in our tiny little town. Then a lot of times I don't have a cell signal for it kind of phases out on me at different times. And so it didn't go through. So, anyway, I wanted to start by saying I didn't believe in past lives at all. To me, it didn't make sense because if the creator spirit who has all this divine energy and creates all things everywhere with vast um, uniqueness, like all the many varieties of trees and everything. And um, there's my phone ringing again. So, oh my goodness, just a minute. Okay, I just answered that in case it was her, but it wasn't. So, anyway, it's just ringing. I hope you can't hear it. So, um, anyway, what I was saying was I don't think the our creator, our this universal spirit that we are all made of, it has such a huge, wondrous variety of all the trees and plants and grasses and insects and people, right? And it's always creating, just like we are always creating. And so I thought, well, why? It just didn't make sense to me that this creator who has all this vast uniqueness would reuse, so to speak, the spirits and have us come again into this physical lifetime where we forget who we are, and we have this life full of trouble and burdens and all sorts of junk in our lives and traumas that we work through. And to me, it just did not make sense until, but I have a until I had these conversations with a friend of mine who is also a client, and we've worked in her biofield many, many times. And she was telling me these stories of the past lives from her life and her family and her daughter, and things that they had learned from other practitioners they'd gone to, or from just knowing things and or feeling them in their lives. And I still didn't think much of it, but we had these. conversations a few times, and so my mind was beginning to open to say, okay, well, what is going on, right? What in the world is going on with past lives? Maybe it's there. And then I experienced something in her biofield that I knew was not ancestral, and it wasn't hers. And to me, it felt like her, but not her, right? A past life. um, so not at this time. And so I experienced that and cleared some of that energy. And anyway, our conversations continued at different times over a period of maybe a year. And then I was I had a natal chart reading. I think that was my next thing. That was the first natal chart reading I'd ever done. Because, as I've said before, like my life, I grew up in a, I guess you could call sheltered, probably a conservative Christian family. And a lot of this metaphysical stuff, I mean, God was very real, spirit was really real. Um, but all this other metaphysical connections was not to be trusted for sure, and probably not true. And I should stay away from them. They were bad for us. Had been my impression. Maybe I was told that directly. I don't remember, but for sure, that was my impression that it was better for me to stay away from it. And then, um, but of course, I had many, many deep traumas in my life. And so, anyway, um, I natal charts was one of that. A lot of this information, biofield tuning, and working in the auras, and past lives, and talking to ancestors, and all the stuff I do now was very foreign to me. Very thinking this isn't good for me type of thing until I started experiencing it. And then it opened my eyes. Well, what's going on? And by then I had left the churches, or the uh, organized religion as a whole. And I uh, was shifting a lot of my mindsets over the course of 10 years. And then I get to this place I am now. So when I found things that, once it seems to me there's enough evidence or enough questioning that maybe what my mindset or my thought isn't true, then I look, okay, well, what is true? And so then I look. And so one of those was a natal chart reading. I hadn't had one. And the lady whom I got the natal chart reading from, I'd taken courses from hers before. And so I trusted in um, that she was had my best interest in heart. And she had talked about how I had many, many, many past lives, and that in the natal chart reading, she spoke about a few, but she had only wanted to see the general um, outcome, or the general themes of those lives, of the ones that were helpful, because she said she could tell there was very, very many. In all of them, I had been a healer of some kind. And but many of them I had been killed or persecuted or things like that. And so she only pulled up the helpful ones to gain information from the ones that I had lived through and had been good lives or meaningful lives of other kinds. And so she said I had had many, many past lives, and I was in all of them I had been a healer, and many of them had been Native American lives. And that was probably why in this life, she said in my natal chart, I had more earth energies than she had almost ever seen in anyone before. And so anyway, that was interesting to me. And so then I was doing quite a bit of spiritual hypnosis at the time, where I'm put in a hypnosis state, and then I ask these questions of the oneness, or of a spirit, or of the ancestors, to find out, try to learn what is things like? Look at what I really am, who I really am, what is this spirit world, and talk to it more directly in that way of things that maybe I couldn't understand from my conscious mind. And so I had asked to in one of these hypnosis sessions, I had asked to experience any past lives if I'd had any, and one came up right away, and it was I was a Native American, Indian, or other type. It might not have been American, but some a type of native tribe person or living off the land person, right? Um, and so my how I perceived it was a Native American Indian because that's who I'm familiar with. And I was her, and she was so calm. And many times in my life, I have wanted to just be calm, especially since I started my inner healing journey. I wanted to receive all as good, even all the bad stuff, and or the things we perceive as bad. And that had been my goal or my quest, my prayer to be that calm, and that I wouldn't get upset when things come by, and I would um, be able to hold that space and choose my actions and my thoughts. And she was like that. She was so totally calm. But then beautiful things happened in her life that I saw in my hypnosis, and she was calm through those. She didn't have the joy. She was so calm, so receiving of everything as good, and she didn't have the joy because she didn't have the sorrow to compare it to. And I decided, okay, um, my life I have now isn't so bad, that feeling the love and the joy was very much worth having the sadness too and the difficulties. And then, so I had these experiences with her in this hypnosis, and then she was dying. She was very elderly and dying, and I became her daughter as well. It was very interesting. I don't know how all that happens, but anyway, and then I had other questions about the past lives, like with my ancestors. What I have really found is, in my experience, how I interpret things, and that's how we can all only approach um, our healing work or our life in general, is how we perceive it, because we can't perceive it any differently than our accumulated life experiences allow us to perceive them, right? And that probably includes our past lives, our intuition, our ancestors, and how we are able to perceive life. And so um, how I perceived part of the ancestors is that there, once your physical body dies, if you are not able to go to the oneness directly at the point of death, then you're in this, what I have called the waiting place, after the Dr. Seuss book of oh, the places you go, and there's a double page spread of the waiting place, that people are just waiting, wasting time. And so um, the ancestors, or I call it, are in this waiting place. It's in nature around us, and they can't go to the oneness until they have these five things that they need, that I've been shown that they need, that allows them to transition into the next realm. And so how could our souls, if they're in the waiting place around us, because some people speak of past lives of being 30 years ago, or more recent past lives, instead of just deep ancestral type generations, eons ago of past lives. And so how could we um, how could our ancestors be here and be stuck in the waiting place? And from my experience, the majority of people, at least of myself and the clients that I've had, have all been in the waiting place. There's been very few that have gone to the oneness at the point of death. And so how can they, if the ancestors are in this space and have to wait so long in order to have what they need to move on, then how could the past life, because to me, your spirit wouldn't be whole and cleansed enough until you transitioned into the oneness. And then your spirit could return to past lives if that's how it worked. And that you had the choice to go. And um, so how could it work if all the ancestors were here? And unless, anyway, that was another of my theories or questions about how past lives work and how could they work. And so in the hypnosis I had another question about how that works and why we're put here, and why we want to, why would we want to come back and things like that. Or if past lives, my question was, are past lives even supposed to be, if the creator has all this um great creativity and we're all unique, and he doesn't, then why, and doesn't need to replicate or bring us back into another life, then how would, why would that work? Why would we, past lives exist then, was my question. And it was like the answer from the oneness was that that's not the right question. That I won't get there with that line of thought. That it was, the answer was, because we have free choice, because we choose that we want to come and experience life, then that's why it doesn't matter if it wasn't intended that past lives happen at all. That's not a good question. They happen because we choose to have it happen. And whether it be new souls and they just have one life and never have another past life or never come again, or whether we all come many, many times, it doesn't matter. It's possible and we're given the choice. And so that's all that matters about it. And so, anyway, these are my experiences in learning about past lives. And so, anyway, now I proceed to where I met Dr. Robin Hanson. I went to a Spirit Mind Body Fair, and she had a booth there, and I was going to stop and ask her to be a guest on the podcast. That was my one of my main intentions of going to the Spirit Mind Body Fair, was to get guests for the podcast that might be interesting. And anyway, but she had someone with her at the time, and so I walked past and walked down the row of booths and talked. And then after several moments or half an hour or whatever, I came back, and she flagged me down and said, when I walked past her, she saw this big bloody wound at my shoulder with an arrow stuck in me, and I had been wounded in a past life. Again, it tied in with Native American Indian people. And so, and she had asked if I had shoulder pain, and I had been having shoulder pain at that time. And so she explained what she saw. And so that's how we got started talking about past lives. And so I was going to have her on as a guest then a couple years ago, but it didn't work out. And so I was thankful that it seemed that it would work out this time. And anyway, so in the meantime, with my experiences of things, then I asked to experience it in my biofield, and I found past life information in the ancestral field. And since then, most of the time, when I'm working in the ancestral field, most of it I call still considered just ancestral information. But at times, there is information that is definitely not ancestral, and I'm on in the ancestral field, and it's not the person, my client's energies. It is from something else. It is from a past life. And I usually don't get stories or visions with those, but I have in the past occasionally with ancestors, but um, I haven't yet had a vision, so to speak, of past lives, but I do consistently at different times find the past life information in the ancestral field of clients. And we clear that information. And I have routinely cleared that in me and other of my clients and family members, just to clear past life karma, so to speak, or to clear the unhelpful patterns that we carry within us, because that becomes part of our DNA also. And so it's not just ancestors that come from that are other people in our lives. It's ancestors that are us in a different life. And so that's my experience. And again, my experiences with these only came after my mind was open to receive it. And so many things, like when we're working in the biofield or our work, if we set our intention on what we want to find or what we want to work on, or just to be open and find whatever spirit shows us is there to work on, but we find what our intention is. And so, because my intention was there are no past lives, it doesn't make sense. I wasn't seeing them. And once my perspective changed to, oh, well, it sounds like maybe there is, um, help me know truth, then I could find it. And so that's my experience with half lives, past lives, I mean. And I hope that Dr. Hanson can join us soon in the future to tell her story. And I think it would be very interesting. I know she has some past life stories to tell too, as well as um, just her experiences in general with past lives and how she got to working in there. So I'll let you go for today. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope I'll see you next week for sure. So talk to you later. Bye bye.